Please look into the recording.
Good evening, Murthy garu.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, sir.
Yeah. Okay, shall we start the session?
Yes.
Yes, sir. We can start, sir. Actually.
How many participants are there?
Right now, around 16 participants they are joining, sir, one by one.
Okay. So, but right now it is already 7, huh? 7.
Yes.
So I think it's right time to start, right? Yeah. Good evening, all of you, all the participants. In addition, the resource person, Dr. Murthy garu, who is the principal scientist at NML Jamshedpur. Warm welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Murthy is going to deliver a talk on microstructural characterization of nanomaterials. So it's a very useful talk for all the participants. I think every participant will get benefited by this talk with respect to evaluation characteristics of microstructure of nanomaterials. So definitely at least a few of the participants can initiate research in this particular area. So I request all the participants to make utilize this wonderful opportunity and try to initiate the research in the relevant area. So now I request Dr. Srinivas Prasad to introduce our Murthy garu, Dr. Murthy from NML Jamshedpur.
Yes, sir. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, sir. Dr. GVS Murthy garu is a senior principal scientist F from CSIR National Metallurgical Laboratory, Jamshedpur. So he did his MSc and PhD in physics from Andhra University, Visakhapatnam. So before joining CSIR NML as a scientist in 1997, he was a postdoctoral fellow at School of Physics, Hyderabad, Central University from 1992 to 1995. His area of research is in materials and technology with special interest in non-destructive evolution, ultrasonic magnetic materials, remaining life assessment, materials characterization, microscopy, and digital signal processing. He has published more than 50 research papers in international and national journals and holds 3 patents. He has supervised more than 12 MTech dissertation theses. He is also a peer reviewer for international journals and carried out reviews of more than 25 research manuscripts. In addition, he has been a PhD MTech thesis reviewer in the area of metallurgy, material science for Banaras Hindu University and Punjab Technical University. He has carried out several research projects funded by industry and scientific bodies. In recognition to his contributions, he has been elected as Life Fellow of Ultrasonic Society of India. He is also the recipient of C.V. Raman Prize 2021 in recognition of an outstanding professional and research achievements in the field of material science and technology, and winner of CSIR Technology Award 2021 for innovative marketing of knowledge base, building strong linkages and partnerships, and sustainable growth of revenue of CSIR NML. Respected sir, I request you to extend your expertise in this area of nanotechnology, nanomaterials, and bring some awareness to the participants who are trying to do a lot of research, have plans in doing research in this area of nanotechnology. Thank you very much, sir. I request you to share your presentation.
Yeah, I hope my presentation is visible.
Yes, sir,
thank you very much. Thank you very much for your kind introduction. And Professor Swaminarayan garu, yes, thank you very much for your warm welcome, and first you have extended the invitation to me, and then I think I cannot really refuse it. Okay, so thank you. That it's a great opportunity for me to interact with young people and all that. Okay, now let me tell you that basically, this is going to be a talk on the microstructural characterization of nanomaterials. But before that, I would like to ask the participants, let the participants be interactive. You can always raise your hand. I think maybe Srinivas Prasad garu, can you just interrupt me whenever anybody raises a hand so that I can immediately answer his or her queries?
Sure.
Okay, okay. So, I will request all the participants to be participating. It should be mutual. I also interact, you also say something. Is it all right? And I hope, like sometimes I feel like talking in Telugu. I think most of us are Telugu audience only. Okay. So with this introduction, I think I'll start my lecture, which is basically about microstructural characterization of nanomaterials. But before that, since I'm told there are people even with mechanical engineering background, can I ask you people one thing? Do you agree to the statement, without materials there is no engineering? Yes or no? Anyone or two?
Yes, sir, I can agree.
Huh? You agree?
Yes, sir, I can.
Okay, no. I mean, do you agree that materials are part of engineering? You require good material for engineering, isn't it? Okay. So materials are used to build objects, whether it is buildings or even machinery. Okay. And in the recent years, there has been lot of emphasis, or there has been increase in the range of materials available to us. There are metals, ceramics, polymers, composites, whatnot. Okay. Since this lecture is not about materials, I'm not going to concentrate on that. But I want to say that it is therefore important that we should use the correct material for a particular application. For example, let me tell you that I think all of you are aware that aluminum alloys are very light, isn't it? But you cannot use these aluminum alloys for high temperature applications. Do you agree? So with this background, I will say that even a mechanical engineer also should be willing to understand a bit about the materials. So that is the reason why I say that without materials or without the right material, a good engineering design is wasted. To further elaborate on this, let me tell you, suppose you have designed some sort of a turbine, a gas turbine. A gas turbine is supposed to work at high temperatures. So you have to choose a material which can sustain, which is stable at that high temperature. Okay, so that means you need the right material for the right job. At the same time, you cannot always ask for a high temperature material for every job. As I go on, I'll tell you why and all that. Okay, so you need the right material for the right job. So then, what is the next consequence of this? The material properties have to be understood properly before we are able to design our machines. So that means we should understand whether the materials in the same example, let us say the same example, we should understand whether we really need a high temperature material or even any other alternate materials can be used. So that means materials properties are responsible in the same example of the turbine, for the turbine to work at high temperatures. Okay, if it is not working at high temperature, the whole of your turbine design is wasted. So that is why, I think people might have heard, materials also define our age, like Stone Age, where it seems all the tools were also made of stones. Now we are also having tools with Iron Age. So like that, like materials define the age. Okay. With this objective, I think there is some problem in the top. Okay, we should understand the materials properties. Okay, what are all the material properties that are important for us? First thing is that we should know the mechanical properties, whether it is having that enough strength or not. Then depending on the application, suppose if we are trying to design a conductor, so it should have a good electrical property. Suppose you want to have a sort of a motor, it should have some magnetic properties for conversion motors. Similarly, dielectric properties, optical properties. And if you are going to use it in a corrosive environment, suppose if you are going to have an application which is to be used in sea, or maybe in our own body, the next one is biological properties. So we should understand the biological properties. So these are all some of the properties which I think I randomly listed, but there are still more properties also which we should really know. Okay, so with these things, now since we have mechanical properties are again divided into so many classes. First is hardness. I think my friends from metallurgy can say that hardness is the resistance to deformation. It is like this, suppose if you are trying to bang a material with a hammer or whatever it is, it should not deform. I mean, it should have some resistance. It's not that, suppose if you hit a glass piece with a hammer, it breaks immediately. But the same thing, if you are hitting it on a sheet of metal, let us say iron or even tin also, it deforms. So that means the hardness of this particular metal is slightly better than the glass. Okay, that is what is known as hardness. Similarly, tensile strength and yield strength. Basically, when we are doing a, I'm trying to go a bit into the metallurgical part of it right now. We do what is known as a tensile test, where we get a stress strain curve, and from there we get the tensile stress, tensile and yield strength properties. These are all some of the things that we will be using even in the design stage. When you are designing any machine, you want to know the tensile and the yield strength also. Similarly, the recoverable stress strain part, ductility in the sense the ability to stretch, to prolong, to ability to stand without breaking. Okay, it is what is known as necking occurs. Brittleness, the best example I can think of, since you're all teachers, chalk piece is the best brittle material that we can talk of. Toughness in the sense that again the same material, chalk piece, if you hit it with your finger also it breaks. It doesn't have any toughness. Similarly, these are all some of the mechanical properties that I'm trying to list out. Being a metallurgist, we are familiar with these things, but I'm trying to make it as simple as possible for everyone to follow. If you have anything, please ask me, stop me at any time. Okay. Am I going very fast or is it all right? Any one of you, sir?
All right, sir.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Thank you. Now, next, creep. Creep in the sense, basically what is happening is creep matlab, it is a temperature as well as a load, like basically at high temperature, you are also having a load also. This normally occurs in some high temperature applications. The most common application which many of us may have seen is the boiler tubes. Okay, so this is what is known as creep. Now coming to the physical properties, that is the electrical conductivity and resistivity, which I think all of us must be knowing it right from our schooling level, +2 level. So these are all some of the properties which maybe I think we have studied in our schools also: electrical conductivity, resistivity, polarizability, capacitance, and magnetic properties, para, ferro, and magnetic. So these are all some of the properties that we should understand before we design any machine or any component, or we try to build any machine. So with this background, what I want to say is that we need to select the best material, and we need to look at the 4 things that are essential before we think of the material. The first thing is that properties. Okay, I just put physical properties, but it includes even the mechanical properties. Next is cost, because you should not really run into very huge figures. The time required to procure the materials. Now shaping in the sense that you see when you're designing any machine or any component, you would like it to be shaped into its different forms. Okay, similarly formability and availability. Availability in the sense that it should be easily available to us. It's not like that, like see, something has to come from some other place, or even an exotic material which will take a long time. It should be available immediately to us. So these are the 4 essential things which we should always concentrate before we can think of any material for a particular application. So thus, to motivate my friends from mechanical engineering, I will say material science is divided like this. If you have the performance at the top, and you have the materials engineering, where you have to design the structure, basically structure matlab, I want to say it is microstructure. You will understand what is microstructure as I go on this, and how it is processed, whether it can be processed easily or it is really, and whether that desired microstructure is having the properties that are needed for the performance. So that means it is something like a tetrahedron. Okay, so all these things should be satisfied, and material science essentially involves the relationship between the structure and the properties of the material. So that's why I have put these 2 things in the white. Okay, so with this introduction, I think now I'll try to move into the actual topic of our today's lecture, which is about nanomaterials or nanoscience. Okay, there's some problem. I don't understand why. Okay, I'll read it out. Nanoscience. This has started very recently. is mostly about the study of materials which have very, very small dimensions. I will tell you about the dimensionalities in the next 1 or 2 slides. And it involves almost all the branches of sciences like chemistry, physics, mathematics, biology, and life sciences. Basically, to my understanding, it is the manipulation of these ultra small structures or materials whose properties, this is very important, whose properties are significantly different, just please try to understand. See, there are a lot of differences between the nano material of the same composition from the large scales. Okay, so that is the reason why this particular area of science or nanoscience or nanotechnology has gained prominence. That means today we are able to work at a very small scale but achieve significantly beneficial properties. I will say beneficial because we are having better and properties compared to a larger scale material. Okay, so thus there is some uniqueness about the nanomaterials. What is the uniqueness? They have large surface area, but they occupy very small volume. And the most important thing is that they improve the mechanical properties. That means, as a mechanical engineer, if you are asking for greater strength with a lesser volume, I will suggest that you should go for nanostructured materials. Okay. So now coming to the scale, nanometer scale. Actually, nano, I think everybody must have understood it is 10 to the power of -9. That is, I have put it over here saying that it is 10 to the power of -9. That means it is 1 billionth of a meter. Okay. And these materials are normally of the dimension of 1 to 100 nanometers. Because if you're going to 100 nanometers, you're going to a micron size. Okay. And basically, it seems nano word has been derived from the Greek vocabulary, which means dwarf. Dwarf ante Marugujjan antam Telugulo. Okay, now see this particular picture. See, normally an average human being is about 1 meter in size. If you're going down, like you can see, a plant or an animal cell is about 100 microns. Okay. Normally, we can see all these things in an optical microscope, even this part also. But the bacteria in the sense that I think we don't have any biological people, but I can say that bacteria are present in most of the things that we eat also. The best example which I can tell you is the curd that we eat is also a bacteria. Then, okay, I think recently over the past 2 years, we must have all heard about this virus. Virus, you see how small it is. It is only 100 nanometers. And okay, if we have any biological students, we can talk of DNA and RNA, which are about 1 nanometers. And if you still further go down, an atom is about 0.1 nanometer. So that means basically we are dealing with something which are in this range. Okay, I'm excluding the atoms part. So please note that we are in this range, 1 to 100 nanometers. That's what I think I was trying to mention in my previous slide also. This is the range of our materials microstructure. That means the dimensions. The dimensions ante length 1 billionth of a meter. This is what I was trying to show you. You are seeing here 1 centimeter. Now you try to imagine how small it is.
Slides not moving, sir.
Slides are not moving.
Yes,
sir, Prasad Garu, can you just see where this?
Yes, sir. Slide is the same. On the first slide, it is there.
Let me share it again once more.
Yeah, please, sir.
How it is visible, sir?
Okay. I think there is some limitation in my computer. Fine.
It's not in presentation mode, sir. It's not in presentation mode.
Right, but when I put it in presentation mode, the slides are not moving. So what I try to do is, I try to put it in this mode only.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
You want me to go through the earlier slides also once more?
But still, slides are not moving.
First slide. Now it is again in the first slide, sir.
Yeah, first slide I have put it. No, you want me to go through the slides again once more?
I think you can continue, sir. Actually, this is only the introduction only, sir.
Only the introduction.
Yes, sir. You can roll out the slides.
Okay, I'm
Yes.
going over to the actual slide that I was talking.
Yeah, this slide maybe.
Okay, I think this was the last slide that I was discussing. Is it visible, sir? Everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir. Now it is.
Okay, fine. I think there is some problem in my computer right now. So I'm going in this mode already. I'm not putting in the presentation mode. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Now, see, now let me tell you one thing, basically this nanoscience, it has started very recently. History says that way back in 1959, Richard Feynman, he was a physicist. I don't know how and why suddenly he had an idea saying that there is plenty of room at the bottom in one of the meetings of the American Physical Society. Okay. If I remember right, where I have read, he said, I think maybe knowing Britannica Encyclopedia and I think it's about 25 volumes. He says the whole of Britannica Encyclopedia can be brought onto a pinhead. Okay, he said it can be miniaturized into a pinhead. So that is what he imagined. He says that a day will come and things can be miniaturized, and where huge amounts of data can be encoded into increasingly small spaces. The example that on that day it seems he was quoting was Britannica Encyclopedia can be put into a pinhead. Okay, but then he was questioned, is it really true? That is the reason why the nanotechnology did not take off in those days. But suddenly, after 25 years, this was all what I got from the literature. Feynman was again invited by the same society in the year October 84 to deliver the same lecture where he tried to modify. So what I want to say through this is that this particular nanotechnology, which we are all aware, and I think by the end of this lecture, we are able to handle this nanotechnology. Okay, I think as I go through my lecture, I'll try to. Okay, so it was there, but we could not understand the properties. And this was the reason why, maybe to me, that we could not put it to proper use also. You see, unless any discovery or anything, any technology, if it is not particularly useful, I think there will not be much of relevance and people may not really be interested to study much about it. So in my opinion, there are some issues. I think I'll try to go on like that and I'll explain where and what. Okay. So that was the reason, even though this has been postulated, maybe he must have dreamt or something, I don't know. Way back in 1959 until 1984, he had to wait to make people believe his technology. Okay. So this is the actual origin of story about nanotechnology. Okay. So next, if I go to the next slide, it is basically an interdisciplinary approach. Basically, it requires physical sciences, engineering sciences, as well as biosciences. Okay. So why all these things is that you have seen my earlier slides.
Excuse me, sir, one moment.
Yes, tell me, sir.
Sir, if is using that open share tray, the first option is screen share. One option is there, no, sir. If you put that entire screen will be coming, then the presentation mode can be more visible, sir. If that is possible.
Just 1 minute.
That while we are trying to open that share mode, no, sir.
Share mode, yes.
The first option is there, no, sir. Screen share.
Okay, let me stop. Just 1 minute. I'm stopping it sharing and then I'll again come back to that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I've stopped sharing it. Now I share it. Okay. Then.
While we are sharing screen share, the first option, desktop window screen share is there, no, sir?
Yeah.
If you put that entire presentation, if you put it into slide mode also, it will be opening the bigger picture.
Okay, I'm trying. Now is it coming up, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, it's coming, sir.
Okay, let me check whether I can move. Is it moving?
Yeah, yes. It's moving. Yes. Going good.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for the interruption. Basically these are all some technical problems, that is the reason I am staying back in my office. Okay. So basically, what I want to say is that nanotechnology is an interdisciplinary approach. So there are no boundaries. What I want to say is that a physics person also can work, a biological person is also needed, beyond all these things, we need an engineering person so that we understand what is his or her own requirement. Accordingly, we can fine-tune the properties to give an application. So that means nanotechnology is an interdisciplinary science. Okay, everybody ultimately, again I will say that not all the people, but who have some understanding of physical sciences, some understanding of biological sciences, can take the risk to work in this particular area. Okay, now since I agreed to talk on characterization techniques, so let me come to the main issue, that is about the characterization. Why characterization? Why do we need to know material? I think in the previous slides I was trying to explain it is one of the essential requirements and for commercialization of nanomaterials that we should understand the physical, chemical and biological properties at the nanoscale. Mind you, sir, I'm telling you at the nanoscale. I don't know, okay, spelling it all right. Okay, because as you go, you will understand that the properties of a material at nanoscale is quite different, significantly different. And sometimes it can be good, sometimes it can be bad. But if we can tune it in such a way that we are achieving some better mechanical properties, that is what is known as engineering. Okay, so that means we need to have some techniques which can look at a material at the nanoscale level. For this, we have to know the composition, and we have to have some sort of a spectroscopic methods like X-ray diffraction, neutron diffraction, and for determination of size and shape. Basically, I'm talking about nanoscale, so we should know the size of the particle. Particle size should be determined, and the shape in which form. For that, we need to use what is known as electron microscopy, and these essential microscopies are SCM and TM. I'll tell you, I think in the next slide itself, I'm trying to tell you what are all the different microscopes. See, optical microscopy, normally any particle which is more than 1 micron. If you remember my previous slide, I was talking about plant cells. Plant cells normally, botany, zoology people, they will be using an optical microscope to see their plant cells and animal cells. Okay, it is a tedious process. I think even in a metallurgical lab also we use optical microscopy to a certain extent. It is tedious, but the resolution is also quite less. Now, the next issue is we are thinking of electron microscopy, which is basically used to find the morphology, where the particle shape and is also known to us, and the morphology. Morphology in the sense that chemical composition and the distribution is also known. But however, okay, the resolution has improved compared to this sort of optical microscopes. Here I'm talking about angstroms, 10 angstroms to 1 micron. Okay, but see, when you're talking about electron microscope, you should understand that the beam of investigation is an electron. And since we are all teachers, we all know that they require high vacuum. So this sets a limitation on the technique to be used for aqueous samples, and liquid solutions cannot be used to study directly in an electron microscope. Of course, I would not say these samples cannot be studied, but there are some special techniques. We evaporate them onto a grid and then we try. But sometimes there is a risk of changing the microstructure. Okay, microstructure is one very essential feature when we are trying to talk about the physical properties. Okay, so this is about the electron microscope, but in general, we are able to handle most of the problems at the electron microscope. So now,
sir, excuse me, sir.
Yes, sir. Tell me.
Sir, your sample preparation is going to change microstructure.
Yeah. Sample preparation in the sense that not microstructure. What I will say that you are talking about a material which is at the nanoscale. Okay. In the sample preparation, some sort of localized heating will occur. I don't know, if you are a metallurgist, you will be polishing a sample. Have you done it? So what is happening if you just try to touch it, localized, there will be some sort of a heated zone. If you touch with your bare finger, కొంచెం heat ekinnatuga telustundi manaki. At least it must have gone to 200 degrees centigrade. See, these aqueous solutions, aqueous samples and all these things, basically these are all biological samples. Okay.
Okay.
But then there are techniques, we have done it also. I think I'll show you in one of my slides that I have, where we try to evaporate it onto a conducting grid and then we see that. Okay. Anybody else?
Okay, sir.
Anybody else? Anything that you want to ask or clarify?
No, okay, sir.
Okay, fine. Now, the basic principle of an electron microscope. As the name itself indicates, basically, we are using a high energy beam of electrons under high vacuum. Why vacuum? Because it has to travel through a media. I mean, basically electrons cannot travel very large distances. So that is why we have to have a vacuum. And vacuum is also essential so that there are no other interference. Suppose if in the air there might be some sort of impurities. Suppose if this electron beam hits on one of the impurity, you will be getting that particular data, which is not. See, that is what I was trying to mention in the next slide. Electrons interact with the atoms that make up the sample producing signals. That means these electrons which are emitted by the microscope. I am using a very high energy beam of electrons at a very high vacuum. Okay, I think I'll show you the vacuum. I don't know. Okay, fine. I'll see that. So these will interact with the atoms of the material under investigation to produce some signals which contain the information about the topography, composition, and etc. See, I mean, to visualize this, let me tell you, I hope you are all using your computers right now. You are all seeing it. And you are all sitting in a room where there is light. And you are saying that this particular slide has a color red and blue. I think if I'm going into a bit of my physics, it says that you are having a white beam, but that white beam is absorbing all, but it is emitting your red light on the top line, and on the bottom line there are blue colors. Similarly, in an electron microscope also, an electron is impinging on the atom. Impinging means it is interacting, it is hit, and it produces a signal. Just as you are seeing a red color over here and a blue color over here, it produces different signal which gives us information about the material under investigation. Okay. And now, the next question, I think maybe most of the participants must be wondering, sir, all the samples may not be able to see, electron has to be conducting. So for that, what we try to do is, we try to coat it. Coat it means it is a very small coating, maybe a few microns level, which is conducting. So normally we use, in a lab, I think regularly we use graphite coating. But people who can afford it, they can even go for platinum and gold coatings, which are very costly. But this particular graphite, I think everybody knows that graphite is a good conductor, carbon. Okay, so we coat it. And now let me also make it clear that this coating is not going to affect the properties of the material under investigation, because this coating is only a few microns, whereas this electron will be interacting with the atoms that make the bulk of the material. That means it will be penetrating quite deeper than the micron level. Okay. And the size ranges that can be investigated are 5 nanometers. Okay. So these are the advantages of a scanning electron microscope. And this is basically using an electron microscope. Now, why it is called only scanning electron microscope? That means, see, it is only scanning. Scanning means it is only making a raster until it is just moving on the surface, just a few microns below the surface. It is not going and entering into the sample. It is not entering into the bulk of the material. Suppose you have a sample which is a few mm thickness. Okay, fine, thickness. You load it onto a microscope, into an electron microscope. You are seeing the sample under investigation, but you are not seeing the bulk of the sample. And you are not seeing it through the material. 1 thickness, we are not seeing it through. We are seeing a few microns of the top surface. Okay, so that means we are increasing our resolution, but still there is something lacking in this. Okay, so that is the reason why I think we will be going to the TM. I will tell you in the next slides. But there are some small disadvantages. Sample has to be dry. Yes, I think this is what I was trying to. Sometimes change the morphology and size of the particle. Coating if you give a thicker layer of graphite or any other conductive coating, they might interfere with the composition and size of the particle. And it only provides a 3D projection. I mean, sorry, 2D projection. 2D projection. Okay. I think you will understand if I show you the next slide. Okay, I think okay, after TM I'll show you. Now in the TM, the name itself shows that it is transmission electron microscope. Now if I go back to our college physics, transmission electron microscope. Electron cannot travel large distances in a material. So we have to prepare a material which is to be used for an electron microscope. I think I'm not, it's not coming up over here. Okay, here, this is an image formed from the electrons transmitted through it and is magnified by an objective lens. Basically, I think there is some issue in my computer. Something is not coming up. For this, the sample preparation has to be done also properly. Okay, I don't know. Sorry. Okay. Basically, what we try to do if it is a metallic sample, we try to impregnate. Impregnate means we try to make a pinhole. Okay. What happens in the pinhole? Just adjacent to the pinhole, there is a very, very thin layer, few microns. So that part will be interacting with the electrons in the TEM. So that is what will be giving us the information about the particular sample and an image is formed. Okay, I think there is some, or maybe this slide is giving some issues. Okay, let me go to the next slide and see how it's. Is it all right now? Hello?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Okay, now you can see, you can understand this. Basically, if you see on my left-hand side, you have an optical microscope, which is a blurred image. If you go to a scanning electron microscope, you are having a better resolution. You can have a two-dimensional vision. Two-dimensional you see that this is in the top layer and this is on the bottom layer on the extent. You can see here also. Okay, so this is the advantage with a scanning electron microscope. I think I didn't get an image of this one, so that is the reason I have put the microscope over here. But in my further slides, I have some microscope and TM slides also. I'll show you. Okay, so I hope by this time you are able to appreciate that using a scanning electron microscope, we are getting some additional information. Additional information in the sense that, see, if it uses a scanning electron microscope, you are getting a two-dimensional vision. In transmission electron microscope, you get a very good further information. As I go along, you will see it. Okay. Okay. Now, what is the importance of microstructure and how it affects our other properties is what I want to project through this particular slide. Basically, I think this is very interesting for my friends from metallurgy. We all understand that. In fact, the previous slide, I think that is some precipitate in some nickel-based alloy, which is pictured in the optical microscope as well as SEM. Okay, so precipitation and all these things are all microstructural features, which we normally obtain by a destructive method, either optical microscope, SEM, and TM. A destructive in the sense that we have to do a sample preparation and all these things. Now, since when I have been working in non-destructive evaluation, I would like to understand these properties in a non-destructive way. So for this, I use an ultrasonics. Okay, so this is what I want to say. Basically, these are all some of the physical properties which will affect your microstructure, and these can be studied in an indirect way using a non-destructive method. This is just, it is just a digression because out of my interest, I have put it so that, you will appreciate that most of the properties can be studied in a number of ways. It is not always necessary to go for a TEM and an SEM also. Of course, this non-destructive is still not very good for nanostructures, but there are some indirect methods to do it. Okay, I'm not going to go much into this slide, but let me go over to the actual experimental preparations or studies that we have carried out at our lab. So actually now I think I'll be making a presentation mostly on the work that we have carried out at our lab. Do you want to take a break or shall I continue for some more time? Prasad Garu?
Maybe, sir, we can have a break for 10 minutes and
okay,
we can
5
continue.
minutes, 10 minutes is also all right. Basically, now this is a serious sort of thing, so I don't know how the audience will take, but I'm trying to put it to the best of my ability. Okay, so we meet at time and time, sir, 7:40.
Sir.
7:50 we can meet again.
Sure, sir, sure.
Okay, I'm available.
So all the participants are requested to be available. So after 10 minutes, we shall continue with this session.
Meanwhile, I'll ask participants to reflect on what I have been saying, and if you have any questions, you can always come back. Okay.
Okay, sir, thank you.
Yes, Prasad Garu, am I available?
Yes, sir. I would like to welcome you back again for the part 2 of this session, sir. Today's session. I request you to.
Okay, thank you. I hope all the participants have also joined. Okay.
Yes, sir. They are available, sir.
Okay. Okay, fine. Thank you. So, basically now, I hope you must have understood by now the different microstructural characterization. Microstructural characterization means we are using a microscope where, okay, I just try to go, okay, fine, where electrons are the primary media or the beams which interact with the material under investigation and give us the information that we are looking. Okay, since we are using a microscope, we call it microstructure. Also, the dimensions are below 1 micron. We are now going slowly to the nano size. So that means, I would not say that you need a microscope always for for characterizing a nanostructural material, but if you want to make sure that your material is of nano size, you should know the size. Size మనం తెలుసుకోవాలి అంటే we have to have a dimensional check. Dimensional check. Earlier, okay, it was only through microscope, but now, as you go ahead, I will show you that how we are able to even without using a microscope. But still, people are, like traditional methods. They ask for microscopic confirmation, as far as at least our research is there. But we have ample evidence that they are in the microscopic range. Okay, so now, my dear friends, let me tell you, for a nanostructured material research, we need a microscope, at least an electron microscope, but it is not the essential sort of things. We can see the other properties. And you mean to say, what I want to say is that at the nano level, there are so many property changes which can be monitored even through other techniques also. Okay, so this is the basis of my presentation for the next few minutes. Okay. Now, the first thing, basically, if you recall, I was also saying that, this nanostructured concept was introduced by Richard Feynman way back in 1959. And he had to wait until 1984 to make people believe his particular theory. Okay. Similarly, this particular slide, this is an experiment which we have done the characterization at our laboratory. Basically, it is a biomimetic synthesis of a super paramagnetic iron oxide particles. Just to digress a bit, to make it more interesting. Basically, I think everybody knows iron oxide is ferromagnetic. And there was a requirement that this particular iron oxide, it has to go into the, it has to be such a small that it can be introduced into some sort of a suspension. So that, if I tell you the whole story, to cut it short, it was basically a requirement from the medical profession. They wanted to use this iron oxide for a drug delivery and monitoring it using their own MRI and all these things. Okay. So that was the problem that was presented to us, and we had to do it way back. I think it was in 99 or 2000. Yeah. Okay. So basically, we tried to synthesize iron oxide. Iron oxide, I think, if you have any chemistry friends, it is very simple to synthesize, but they wanted it in the nanoparticle size. Okay, so that it can be suspended into a suspension. Liquid drug lo pettukodaniki. So we tried different methods. We used what is known as egg white, and then we use this is BSA. BSA matlab basically it is a serum which is obtained from the cow. Basically, it is obtained from the milk actually. Okay, so we use these two methods and we try to synthesize these. So I'm not going into the detail. If you want, I can give you the reference number. I think I'm given it in the next slide. You can see it. See, way back in 2000, we did not have a very good electron microscope. There were some limitations. It was not installed or something like that. So we could only just see that this left-hand side, where I'm putting my arrow right now, is a magnified image in an SCM. Okay, you can see that there are some particles. You can see these are particles, but they are not very clear. It is very hazy. You cannot make out anything about the size. You can only say that, okay, they are very small, but the interaction of the electrons with this particle dimension is making it a blurred image. So we have gone to what is known as a TM. Okay, where here also, because of the limitations of our own electronics over here, we could only see a ring pattern. Okay, which satisfies us saying that, okay, it has gone to a very small dimension. Okay, now we try to make a particle. We have taken a number of pictures like these things. We try to measure this particular ring size and we are trying to correlate the particle size. So we try to plot it and we see that the particle size is coming around 20 nanometers, which is the requirement for the biological specimens. Okay. It's not moving. Yeah. Now, to further understand, basically we are still not sure. We have calculated it, but we are not sure because when we are delivering a material, you have to be sure about the nature of the material. Basically, we all know that iron oxide is ferromagnetic, but now this is the place where the nanostructured components will be changing. See, if I do a Mossbar spectroscopy, I have not mentioned here. Basically, I was only just mentioning it is a spectroscopic technique. It is something like this, basically here a gamma ray interacts with the atoms and it produces a image or a signal where we can do it at different temperatures. That means we can take the samples from the room temperature down to low temperature or even go to the high temperatures. But now we have recorded this particular spectrum at a low temperature. And it is very well recorded in the literature, or we all know that for a ferromagnetic material, a Mossbar spectroscopy should have 6 fingers. Okay. Now, at the room temperature, we are seeing that there is no ferromagnetic signal. It is only just showing 2 fingers. But if I go to the low temperature at 20K, it is showing some 6 fingers. So now I am sure that I have synthesized iron oxide only, which is ferromagnetic at low temperatures and whose particle size is of the range of nanometers. I have estimated it in the previous electron microscopy, but I should know that the property is also available at the nano size. So what is known as, we get what is known as super paramagnetic behavior. Okay, I don't want to go into the details, but the super paramagnetic behavior, we have all seen ferro, para, and diamagnetic materials. Ferromagnetic materials are strongly magnetic. Paramagnetic materials are weakly magnetic. So that is what is being reflected in these particular things. So it means at room temperature, it will be at a paramagnetic state, but at low temperature, it will be at a ferromagnetic. So, and what is happening at this temperature? When you're going from the low temperature to the high temperature, that means the particle size is also changing. Okay, so this is a proof enough to say that if you are using this particular material at a low temperature, it will have a nano sized particle. Okay. Now at what temperature another estimate cheyadaniki, we do further magnetic studies, and there is what is known as a AC susceptibility. Basically, it is a method where we are trying to see transition temperature as we increase the temperature, the susceptibility, how it is changing from a ferromagnetic to a anti-ferromagnetic sort of. So we have understood that from this plot that at the temperature of 220 degrees Kelvin, it is just below the room temperature. Our room temperature is estimated to be 300 degrees Kelvin. It is at about liquid nitrogen temperature that we are getting this particular nano-sized particles. And actually, see, this was since we are in a CSR lab and we have to publish, so it was allowed to publish at 2003. So you can see, at that time we had some limitations wherein we cannot really see the actual particle size and do much in the electron microscope. But through alternate methods, I am trying to establish that I have synthesized a nanostructured material which is about 20 nanometers. So this is how the science progresses, it's already something like 19 or 20 years back that we have carried out this, 19 or 20 or even more than that. So now you must have realized by this time that the reason why nanostructured materials, even though it was known, the concept is known way back in 1980s, it was not used properly because of the lack of understanding of the properties. So what I want to emphasize through my lecture right now is that the characterization of a nanomaterial is very essential, or it is the most important requirement to design anything using a nanostructured material. So that means we should understand the properties, and to understand the properties, we have to carry out these characterization techniques. Okay, so this is one of the examples that we have done quite early in my career. Yeah, you can see that it is published at in 2003. If anybody wants to have a further look, you can note down this reference and get back to me if you want to really know. Okay. Now coming back to the mechanical properties, I think my friends from metallurgy can understand this Hall-Petch relationship. Do you understand this? I think you must have read it in your third year or fourth year of your metallurgical engineering, where the conventional materials, if you reduce the grain size, what is increasing? The hardness is increasing. But again, there is a peak there is a limitation. Okay. Beyond this, you cannot increase the hardness by decreasing the grain size. The best example that occurs to my mind is amorphous materials. Okay. Amorphous materials, to my understanding, I don't know whether you have heard about it or not. There is what is known as metallic glasses. Basically, it's a very thin foil sort of things, where it is brittle, but it doesn't have any hardness. Okay. So this is one of the extreme end of the Hall-Petch relationship. So why I am trying to put about this is that in the nanomaterials, you see you are going up to lower levels. You're going less than 1 micron, but still the hardness is increasing. Okay, so this is the exotic feature, or this is one of the most important property for a nanostructured materials, wherein its study and its application is of great importance today. Okay, so with that thing, now let me try to go over to some of my own works where we try to understand the nanostructure in a metallic material. Okay, basically, this is a nickel-based alloy. It's given some commercial name 263. This is the chemical composition where I think you all understand it is basically a nickel-based alloy with some cobalt and chromium. Okay, and some carbon in this. Okay, basically it is an alloy which is used in the aerospace industry. Basically, I think it is being used in the turbines in the aerospace industry. There are small precipitates. If you remember in one of the earlier slides, I showed you one of the pictures of the precipitates. Now I'll try to show how these precipitates are characterized. Okay, these are all some of the metallurgical terms which I don't want to emphasize, but these are all some of the expected precipitates that will be formed, which gives this particular alloy the strength. Okay, so how do I go about characterizing these things? See, as I was telling you, see, when we have to justify ourselves, the ultimate proof is through a microscope. Seeing is believing for all of us. So unless we see it in a microscope, we cannot believe that whether we have the nanostructure or not. So, even though this was done at the later stage, I am putting it in the first stage, so as to put it across to you people that these are all, these black spots are all some of the nanostructured material, nano precipitates, I call it. Precipitates, see, this is the scale, like this is about 3000. I'm sorry, at a magnification of 3000, that means this is the length scale of 10 microns. Until if you see in this 10 micron scale, how many are there? If I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, something more than 10 are there. Okay, so this is a nano precipitate which is formed in the particular alloy after some heat treatment. Okay, I have carried out the heat treatment which I tried to elaborate here at this temperature for so many hours. If I put it, I am getting this sort of precipitates. Now, since I think I mentioned that I am interested in ultrasonics, I am trying to use an ultrasonic method using a longitudinal wave. I think every one of you must have understood what is meant by longitudinal wave. And then a shear wave also. This is also known as a transverse wave. Why only longitudinal and shear wave? Because if you see these things, they give us, they are the properties that govern the mechanical properties. That is known as modulus, okay, Young's modulus and bulk modulus. Okay, so now with this particular technique, I was able to show that if I have a material with a particular nanostructure precipitates inside the material, the hardness is changing like these things. You can see it is increasing to a particular extent, and after a particular time, this is actually x-axis is number of hours, it is decreasing. So if you see the velocity also, see this is also following, if you see this light green line, it is also following the particular hardness. So using in a non-destructive way, I was able to confirm that if I am able to heat treat a material at 1073 degrees for 50 hours, I can get a nanostructured material, which is seen in this optical, in an SEM picture, and the mechanical properties are also changing, which is reflected through my ultrasonic. So this was one of my earliest works way back, I think in 2005 or 6, and this was published at many places where we are able to show that the variation of the wave velocity with aging time. Okay, so if I want, I can use only my ultrasonic technique and say that okay, this particular alloy has some nanostructured materials. But for a publication or for people to understand, to believe it, we have to do the microscopy. So these are all some of the alternate or indirect methods for characterization of nanostructured materials. Mind you, I am using a high frequency ultrasonic. High frequency ultrasonic ante koncha I am trying to digress, sir. We are using in the megahertz range. Megahertz ante 10 to the power of 6 hertz. Okay. So then inverse chestanta, we are able to interact with this particular nanostructured materials. But if you see this, this is at a lower magnification. In the same size, 10 microns, you are not getting many here. Okay, if I go here, you are getting only 4 or 5. Okay, so this is one of the methods that we can characterize a nanostructured material using an indirect method. Okay, now further, I think this is a magnetic material. Oh, sorry, it's not a magnetic. It's basically a stainless steel. Stainless steel, I think most of us must have seen in our houses. But this particular alloy, stainless steel 304 LN under low nitrogen. Okay, so that's the reason why we have solar nitrogen. Basically, the chemical composition is something like this. And I think all of you must be aware that basically our stainless steel is a chromium containing material with lot of iron in it. And here, the particular choice that we had to take was we had to have a very low carbon also. Why low carbon? Because when this particular stainless steel 304 LN is used for applications at high temperatures, this carbon forms what is known as chromium carbide. And chromium carbide is very brittle in nature. I'll show you in the next slides how brittle it is. That means the chromium is separated from the matrix and we have iron and nickel. Okay. So then see iron and nickel form a ferromagnetic phase. If you see the next slide, I try to draw a phase diagram of iron, nickel and chromium. We are trying to come somewhere over here. Okay. So that means it's a strongly ferromagnetic. And like if you have seen the stainless steel in our houses, I mean, I think, in earlier days when we were small children, we used to have a magnet in the house whenever we were buying a stainless steel material. We used to check it. It should not attract. That is, it is paramagnetic. Now, if there is any sort of a depletion means a change, migration, or the chromium carbide is formed, it results in the formation of a ferromagnetic phase. Okay, this is our concept that we thought we have to prove it in a stainless steel. For that, again, since it is a ferromagnetic and a paramagnetic transition, we are using a magnetic method only first of all. Basically, for a magnetic characterization, I did not mention, but this is what is known as vibrating sample magnetometer, VSM. Basically, the principle it is like, I think you must have all understood that F force is equal to M1 M2 by D squared. Okay, where M1 and M2 are the magnetic moments and D is the distance. So we have a known material and which is made to understand, we are trying to get the magnetic moment of the unknown material. Okay. By applying a magnetic field, we are running it through the whole cycle. I think you must have understood this. I don't know. This is also a school or a college, I think. So maybe what is known as hysteresis loop tracer. Okay. Basically, we are trying to cycle a material from a zero field to a highest field possible and again come back, and then there is a sort of a Ilano-Stone hysteresis. So we try to do the hysteresis or a MH loop for different temperatures. I have aged this sample. Aged means I have kept it at the 620 degrees centigrade for different times. Okay, why 620 and this is because basically I think this was a project funded by Department of Atomic Energy where they are using these stainless steel pipes for their hot, I think hot water pipes or something like that, where the temperatures will be estimated to be 600 to 650 degrees centigrade. Okay. Now, if you notice this particular thing, and if you see my color legend over here, at 5 hours, it is still a paramagnetic. It is still straight. But if I go to 75 hours, it is showing a strongly ferromagnetic behavior. Then, if I go to 100 hours, you should expect that it should be still more ferromagnetic. But unfortunately, it is not more ferromagnetic, but it is the saturation magnetization has come down. And similarly, if I go to 150 hours, it is again going back to this thing. So this is something anomalous and it is a bit confusing. We wanted to examine what is the reason and all that. And of course, still we have not yet established what is the size of the precipitate. Okay, so that is also one thing which is still remaining. So for that, what we did was, we did an optical microstructure. You can see, if my friends from metallurgy, they can see that basically these are all austenitic materials and this is the grain structure at different hours of heat treatment. You can see that the grain boundaries are quite thick. That means at the grain boundaries, the chromium carbide precipitation has occurred. Now, I think all these microstructures are at the same magnification at 100 microns. this is seen clearly, but we are not able to estimate the size and how it behaves also. We have only seen that the magnetic behavior is different. So we have to confirm that particular precipitates, one of this particular thing, the dark lines are only of the nanometer size. How do we go about? See, this is a typical SEM microstructure. See, sorry. See, in this particular microstructure, if you see the grain boundaries, these are all the grain boundaries. Okay. I mean, if you see, there is a depletion. Depletion matlab, ante telugu cheppalante oka gadda laga form ayindi. Ante akkadi nunchi oka layer has been removed anpistundi. Basically, what is happening is the chromium carbide that is formed is very brittle in nature. When we are polishing these particular materials, this particular chromium carbide is removed. It is lift off. Lift off has occurred. That means when I am doing an abrasive polishing, this has come out into the material, come out of the material, and it has created some sort of a crater. English it is called a crater. Gutter laga form. So now I can say that chromium carbide has formed, but still I am not able to understand the magnetic properties, nor are able to tell much about the size and morphology. So what I try to do is that I try to measure these things using the same SEM microstructures. You can see that this is, I'm sorry that this particular microstructure is not very clear. I think the scale is about 20 microns over here. And this is, if a length scale is coming to be 4 to 5 microns. And if I see the composition, this is basically having iron and chromium. Okay, nickel is also there, but it is not visible in here. It's not coming in. Okay, that means the chromium concentration is increased. That is what I am interested in. Because chromium, if you remember, in the first slides when I showed the chemical composition of the stainless steel, it is having 18 chromium. But now the chromium at this particular localized area has gone up to 30 or 20, 29, 34. Okay, so that means the chromium concentration is increased, and the iron concentration is remaining the same. So obviously there must be that the chromium has been pulled out from the matrix and it has separated out. Okay, so I'm sure that the chromium has come out, and that particular region is of the order of few microns, 4 to 5 microns. Okay, now see, this is one thing which I want to tell you. Basically, everybody will, instead of going for a microscope, first we will go for X-ray diffraction, which is very simple and easy to do it, and it is quick also. But see, when you are choosing an experimental technique, you should also understand that limitation of the technique. Okay, X-ray diffraction has a limitation that it cannot detect any phase which is less than, I think, 2% or 5%. I'm not very sure, but that particular phase, wherever you are seeing this chromium depletion, it is very, very less. Even though, see, at a very high magnification, you are seeing it is quite large. But if I go to the bulk of the material, it is very, very large. So I can see some small changes. You can see over here, but this is not very significant. See, these are all the austenitic peaks of the stainless steel. Compared to that, this particular ferromagnetic peaks are very, very small. So whenever we are identifying or whenever we are trying to think of an experimental technique for characterization, we should also know the limitations of the technique. In this particular technique, in this particular science, nanoscience and technology, X-ray diffraction may or may not be able to give us much information. This is what I wanted to show through this particular slide, that X-ray diffraction, yes, we are getting a slight change. Basically, X-ray diffraction, it has to be crystalline gravity, chubistone, but it is not very clearly visible to us. So try to understand that X-ray has a limitation. Now, this is the transmission electron micrograph, TEM micrographs, are the sample treated for 100 hours. See, this is an area, this is somewhere near the grain boundary. We tried to identify this particular area, which we felt was sort of a chromium depleted region. let me tell you one more thing. In this particular thing, not very, basically this dark region and white region, this must be a place where there is a high atomic weight or atomic number. So that is the reason why it is having a very dark region. So we try to take a diffraction, SADP, and a selected area diffraction. I have selected this area. Now, since I have an electron, I am impinging it. So electron, when it impinges a material, we get X-rays. So we are trying to take diffraction pattern, which is giving something like this. Basically it is a dark thing with bright spots. Now we index it. That's a small process. It's not very difficult, but it can be understood. And we index it, and we find that this is a particular phase which is reflecting the chromium carbide formation. Now, I try to even look at the compositions also. See, in this particular area, I see that at point 1, the chromium has gone up to 32. Similarly, at point 2, that is the reason why you can see, if you carefully observe, the relative intensity of the darkness, dark and it's a bit relatively less dark over here. So these electron diffraction patterns also indicate that heavier elements are present around these areas. If you go to this area, I think this must be a very light element. Okay, so this is how we try to index a transmission electron microscope. Now we are sure that the chromium carbide is formed. Mind you, sir, this is at 200 nanometers. And if you see this area, how much it is, if I take this scale, it is coming in that particular range or even less than that. Okay, you can see this area, it is even less than that. If you take this scale over there, it is half of that, approximately half of that. So that means we are working in the nanometer range. This is only a visual proof that the particle size is in the nanometer range. Okay, and we have enough of experimental evidence through diffraction saying that the chromium carbide is formed. Okay, chromium chala increase from 18 it has gone to 30. Okay, now this is for another sample wherein the chromium is slightly less. Okay, and here also we were able to see, you can see that this, if you can put this micrograph in the previous one, there is some sort of a difference. Mind you, I have gone at a bit lower magnification. This is a 200 magnification. You can see that this is light. If you try to remember the previous slide, here at the 200 magnification, you are seeing a very dark region, but here at the 200 nanometers range, you are seeing very less intense or less dark areas. That means to say that chromium is depleted to a lesser extent over here. That means the heavier element is less in this. So this is what we try to understand the compositions. Now further, we do what is known as EDAX. EDAX means extended diffraction. Oh, sorry, it's a it's a electron diffraction pattern. Sorry. Okay. Basically, what we are trying to do is that if the electron is impinging this particular area, it emits some sort of X-rays, and those X-rays are counted, and the profile is drawn like these things. So if you see the profile over here, actually there was some problem in the instrument. It's the nanometer scale. This is in the 300 nanometers. If you are taking this one over here, you can see how small it is. It's hardly 1/10. It must be even less than that. If you take the biggest one, I think it might be something like 20 nanometers if I put the scale over here. So we try to profile it, and we see that the chromium is depleted. Depleted in the sense that here it has, see in this has to come like this. This is the dark region. The chromium is very sort of low in the areas like these things, and here it has iron and nickel have increased. So that is what I am trying to confirm through my compositional analysis also, that there is a chromium depletion around these particular precipitates. That means chromium has been drawn out of the matrix, and what remains was iron and nickel, which is giving us the ferromagnetic state. Now, I have given enough of evidence to show that the particle is having nanometers. Now, to further confirm the magnetic nature, we use, we use what is known as SQUID. SQUID is also sort of a vibrating sample magnetometer only. basically here, why it is called the SQUID is superconducting quantum interference device. In this, we can go to very low temperatures as well as very high magnetic fields also. From this particular, I think this might be a bit sort of confusing for my friends over here, but let me tell you that this is one magnetic technique where we are showing that this paramagnetic material is transforming to a ferromagnetic material, but intermediately there is an anomaly at 75 hours and 100 hours. If you remember the earlier one also, I showed that 75 hours it is showing a higher magnetization compared to the 100 hours. So that means there is some transition which is occurring between these two times. Okay, so we try to estimate that particular temperature through this particular technique called, it is also basically a vibrating sample magnetometer, where again you can see on the y-axis I am having a magnetic moment and the magnetic field. That means I am increasing the magnetic field to 4,000 oysters, that is 4 Tesla. And I am trying to measure the magnetic moment of the sample under investigation. It is varying, and you can see that, as I vary the temperature, the saturation magnetization is changing. Okay, from this particular things, if I plot the individual magnetic moment at different temperatures, I can get the temperature at which this particular transition is occurring in the saturation magnetization. This is what I try to understand, and from this we could estimate what is known as blocking temperature. Blocking temperature basically it is the temperature where the nanostructured material, mind you, it is at a low temperature, it is at below room temperature. Nanostructured material is ferromagnetic, but it becomes antiferromagnetic at something in between 200 to 250 degrees centigrade. Okay, this is only out of my research interest that we have to do it, and we wanted to publish it. Maybe I think it is a bit difficult to understand for you people, but this, why I am putting all these things is that the advances in characterization techniques helps us to use the tools to characterize nanomaterials and to see whether the desired properties are available to us at the temperature of application, at what temperature we should use. Like if I want to use this material, or if I want to understand the magnetic nature of this stainless steel on transformation, I have to make a measurement in between this particular temperature range. Okay, so I think this is what I wanted to say. And this, like why this anomalous behavior, we try to explain it, saying that this is the chromium carbide precipitation. I put it in dark region, and this is the iron nickel phase. Basically, what is happening is at 75 degrees, the chromium carbide acts as a spacer with localized iron nickel phase acting as a ferromagnet. Basically, what is happening is it is shielding these two areas. These two areas are being shielded because of this particular chromium carbide, which is not ferromagnetic. Okay, this is, let me tell you, if you recall my earlier presentation, my earlier slides, the one that we have carried out was in 2003 or published in 2003, and this is in 2019. So it took me more than 15 years to completely understand a magnetic material in the nanostructured materials, in the nanostructure. So that is the reason why I want to emphasize that we have to characterize a nanostructured material in a proper way so that we are sure that its application is met when it is going for its application. With this, I think I try to close. Okay, fine. This is again the same Mossbauer technique, which is again a spectroscopic technique, where we see that ferromagnetic, if I try to fit it, you can see that this is the fitting parameter, chi-squared antam, e-square fit chestamu. This is showing a very good fit. This is also showing, but here it is going very bad. It is going to 1.18. So that means at 500 degrees centigrade, it is totally paramagnetic. At 500 hours, it has become paramagnetic again. That means the whole of chromium carbide has gone back. So these are all some of the things that we try to do in our lab. to characterize the nanostructured materials. And I hope I was able to at least take a few of the participants with me and understand the microstructure. With this, I think I come to the end of my lecture. If there are any questions, I'm always happy to answer. You're welcome. If you want, you can also note down my email over here. You can always communicate with me. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Prasad Garu, Srinivas Prasad Garu.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. I request participants, they can raise their questions, particularly from metallurgical background. Faculty members are also there. Karimullah sir, Ambedkar sir. Any questions from research perspective? Sir has discussed a lot with respect to characterization of materials by various techniques. With all his research experience, he would expose us to large amount of knowledge in this area.
It's just part of our job, sir. I have been here for the past more than 25 years as a scientist. See my biodata.
Very valuable experience, sir.
Yeah, I think
this knowledge is very much useful for people who are doing research in nanotechnology and using nanomaterials. Particularly, if you want to do research, compulsorily you need to know all the participants should be aware of all these kind of characterization techniques, without which you could not identify the properties of novel materials. Particularly, most of them are from nanomaterials prepared with nano composites or some advanced materials also. Sir has given extended his valuable knowledge also. Participants, I request, if you have any questions, please raise it to sir.
Hello, sir.
yeah. Tell me.
Sir, what's the difference between EDS and XRD? EDS analysis and XRD?
See,
I think both are fundamental.
Yeah. See, you said EDS. Do you understand the
Yes.
expansion of that EDS? EDS means electron. What is first thing is electron, I'm telling you. So that means the electron is impinging on the material and then that is converted into an X-ray. See, if I go into the physics part of it, there is what is known as characteristic X-rays. Okay, for each and every element, there is a characteristic X-ray. Okay, so that is the thing that is being done in an SEM. A characteristic X-ray pattern is recorded through an EDS analysis to get the composition. Whereas in an X-ray diffraction, you have a tube which is emitting only the X-rays. There are no electrons in an X-ray diffraction. Okay, see, that is the reason why if I'm using an X-ray diffractometer, I'm asked to protect myself from the radioactivity. Okay, like when I think you are a Telugu speaking person, when you go for an X-ray also, you see the operator just switches on and switches off. Okay.
Yes, sir.
That means X-rays are dangerous. They can create some problems in our body. But whereas electrons, they do not penetrate much. So that was the reason why I was telling you in the sample preparation for TM, we have to make a small pinhole. Okay, edge lo manam danni emo vachi diffraction pattern ki vaadtam. Ade danni TM ki vaadtam. Okay, when you are piercing a hole, a pakka chuttupakkala area koncham mari palchaga untundi. So that is the area that is used for TM. Okay, so don't try to say that X-ray and EDS are same. Basically, X-rays are involved in both the techniques. In EDS, you are using an electron to impinge on the material, which emits a characteristic X-ray. That means if I'm having an iron, chromium, nickel in one of the materials that I showed, each one have a different X-ray, characteristic X-rays that will be emitted and that will be counted in different energies. Characteristic X-rays have different energies and these are recorded to get the composition. Whereas in X-ray, I did not tell you anything about the composition. I was only talking about the phase. The difference between a phase and a composition, please try to understand, sir. Phase is a multi-component system, whereas element is an element only, single element. Okay, I hope
Okay.
I'm clear.
Sir, one more thing, sir.
Tell me.
Sir, after conducting this XRD analysis, how could you know this particular peak is something? And peak ఏంటి అనేది ఎలా తెలుస్తుంది?
Okay, that's very good question. That is what is known as standard diffraction pattern, JCPDS అని ఒకటి వస్తుందంటే. Okay, Joint Commission on Order Diffraction Pattern. Basically, it is a database which has been developed over the years. Let me tell you, it has been, I think, there for the past 100 years. And you know,
Okay.
I don't know whether Professor Swaminathan garu unnaru ledo gaani. In fact, today morning I was discussing with some of my friends. X-ray diffractometer is not very costly, but that database, అంటే ఇప్పుడు మీరు చూసారా, మీరు అడిగారే సార్ ఈ ఫేజ్ ఎలా ఉన్నది అని, ఆ డేటాబేస్ ఇవ్వడానికి that is the most costliest component. Okay, so this is available literature. Okay, let us say if I am getting an iron carbide, I know that this particular peak comes at this particular angle in an X-ray diffractometer. That is what is known as indexing. Am I clear?
So that JCPDS is available in online for free of cost.
Oh, I don't know about online because you know we are not supposed to use that online thing. We buy our licenses, software, and all that. At least I don't know about online. మీరు ఏమైనా చూస్తే నాతో చెప్పండి.
అంటే యాక్చువల్లీ XRD కండక్ట్ చేసినా సార్, దానికి పీక్ తెలియట్లేదు, ఆ పర్టికులర్ పీక్ ఏంటి అన్నది. I have gone to some literature, but in the no literature, no one mentioned about
You are
this particular.
where are you located, sir?
I am from Vijayanagaram, sir.
If I remember, I think Andhra University had these JCPDS data files అని అంటారు, అంటే హార్డ్ కాపీస్, అంటే ఇవి బుక్స్ లాగా వచ్చే వాల్యూమ్స్ వచ్చేవి. If I remember, in my time, I have seen those things in my library. Andhra University main library ఉండాలి. Okay, I'm not sure Vijayanagaram నాకు అంత ఐడియా లేదు. Latest developments, you know, it's more than 30 years since I left those places. Okay, now if you know what is the composition of the element, I mean particular material, can you tell me the composition?
It's for example, if you take aluminum alloy, sir.
Okay, aluminum alloy ఏంటంటే వేసారు. Let us say aluminum nitride, ALN.
Hello.
Tell me, aluminum plus what are the alloying elements?
Alloying elements are zinc, magnesium, silicon.
Okay, now you know the compositions. You know the compositions, whatever elements you have added when you're making the alloy. Okay, now you go to this particular database, you see the combinations, అంటే binary చూస్తారు, ternary చూస్తారు, quaternary చూస్తారు, depending on the number of elements that you have in the alloy. If you have only 2 elements, it is only binary. If you have more than 2, it can be ternary, it can be binary also. So ఈ phases అన్ని మనం వెతుక్కోవాలి ఆ database లో. Let us say that if you are having an aluminum, magnesium, and zinc, you should look for aluminum zinc, magnesium zinc, as well as aluminum zinc and magnesium also. Okay.
Okay.
ఆ database లో మనం చూసుకుంటే కనుక we can get these particular data. Okay. In fact, on the database లో దాని intensity కూడా ఇస్తాడు, ఆ పీక్ ఎంత ఇంటెన్స్ గా ఉన్నది అని.
Okay, sir. Sir, is there any possibility to get database from your end?
Yeah, I'm not able to get your question properly, sir. చెప్పండి.
ఏది JCPDS డేటాబేస్ మీ దగ్గర ఏమైనా ఉంటుందా అంటున్నాను సార్.
మా దగ్గర అంటే ఆన్లైన్ దాని మీద కంప్యూటర్ లో ఉంది సార్, మా ఇన్స్ట్రుమెంట్ కి కనెక్టెడ్ కంప్యూటర్ లో ఉంది. మాకు వేరేగా లేదు అని అనిపిస్తుంది నా ల్యాబ్ లో.
Okay.
ఇదివరకు there was at least when I went for BRC training, I have seen the JCPDS files in their library. Basically మన లైబ్రరీ బుక్స్ చూస్తాను చూసారా, ఇండెక్సింగ్ కార్డ్స్ ఉంటాయి, అలాగనే ఉండేది.
Okay, sir.
But ఇప్పుడు now everything has become software and I think it is computer based database. Like today morning I was in one meeting where they were saying that it is coming in sort of a disk. It is updated every year as per the contract.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I am from Andhra University.
Yeah, tell me, sir. Good. Which department?
Nanotechnology, sir. MTech Nano.
Like Nano, metallurgy department. Okay, Nano. Metallurgy or physics?
BTech Mechanical Engineering, sir. And now I am doing MTech Nanotechnology.
Yeah, but who is handling, which department is handling it in Andhra University? You are associated with department kada. A department is associated with BTech
I think
Mechanical
mechanical only,
engineering,
sir.
sir.
Mechanical is having a course on MTech in nanoscience.
Yes, sir. Ramji sir is the our head, sir.
Okay, I don't know about, but I think it's news for me. I don't know about this, but I'm sorry. This is the first time that I met. Japan.
Sir, I'm just telling that we have XRD analysis experiment setup, sir. And our PhD scholar, one of our sir also done this PCD of this file, sir. So for any information, you can contact you for the student who had contacted before, sir.
Okay. Sir, I think the
Someone had asked.
earlier participant,
Yes, sir.
are you saying this, sir? I think you can contact this person. So can you give the details? You know, chat box లో పెట్టండి మీ details. మిమ్మల్ని ఎలా
Okay, sir.
కాంటాక్ట్ చేయాలి? ఈమెయిల్ ఐడి కానీ లేకపోతే మీ ఫోన్ నెంబర్ కానీ.
Okay.
See, let me tell you, my dear friends, research is a collaborative effort. Research is a collaborative effort, and you have to look out for people who can help you out. It cannot be done in one single room or by one single person. Anything more, sir?
Yes, sir, rightly said. Participant G. Veeraya garu can contact person from Andhra Universities. I think he is B. Rama Vaishnava Satish. Vaishnava Satish is the person who communicated earlier with respect to Andhra University facilities in nanotechnology.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
It was in the geology department. Okay, there was an X-ray spectrometer in the geology department, and they had a JCPDS file. That is, you know, let me tell you, I left the university 30 years back. I left the university in 91-90. Maybe none of you were born, maybe. I'm sorry.
But more sophisticated equipment are available.
Yeah, more sophisticated, more costly also today. Srinivas Prasad garu, if I can tell you the price, we are talking about budget about 1 crore for an X-ray spectrometer.
Yes, it's very huge amount.
There's 60 lakhs is for the software. 60 lakhs is for the software. For the JCPDS file.
So much precious efforts.
Data. Anything else?
Sir, good evening, sir. I am myself Ambedkar, sir, from JNT Vijayanagaram, sir.
Chapani.
I am working on nanopolymer composite, sir.
Okay.
So I have chosen a non-conducting polymer, sir, for reinforcement as a matrix material. So can you suggest some characterization techniques, sir? Because it's a non-conducting polymer, I cannot go for an XRD. So any other suggestions will be helpful.
Who said, why are you ruling out XRD? XRD is one of the primary techniques. It doesn't have any requirement of being a conducting or a non-conducting. Okay. You might say that, sir, మీ లెక్చర్లో ఇప్పుడే చెప్పారు XRD లిమిటేషన్ ఉన్నదని అంటున్నారు. బట్ దాని వాల్యూమ్ ఫ్రాక్షన్ ఎంత ఉంటుంది? మీ నానో ఫేజ్ తాలూకు వాల్యూమ్ ఫ్రాక్షన్ ఎస్టిమేటెడ్.
It will be around less than 4%.
It will be very difficult, sir. I'm not very sure about, you know, these things. Polymers are not very convergent, sir. Maybe what you can do is that you can note down my email. Once more, I'll try to project it. And you can send a mail. I'll check up with some of my friends who are good at polymers.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay, fine.
Sir, previous గా మాట్లాడిన బగ్గు రామవైష్ణవి గారు సార్, నానో టెక్నాలజీ AU.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he has given his email ID also. He has given his email ID also.
Anyway, all the participants will be meeting at our university at JNT Vijayanagaram during the offline sessions. You can interact and get more details collaboratively. So more cooperation and coordination can be extended from one another. That will be another good opportunity for all the participants also. I also request all the participants to attend promptly, sharply at 7 p.m. Because session starts sharply at 7 p.m. all days, all the online sessions. And make sure that you are attending all the sessions, because attendance is also mandatory as per this ASAT Training and Learning Academy guidelines. So that which even means completion of the FDP will be a problem for all the participants. Request all the participants should attend promptly, maintain at least 90% attendance. When we communicate to participants who are not attending today, so rest of the participants, your colleagues, we communicated. Thank you very much, sir. If there are any questions from the participants, please.
See, let me tell you, sir, I have ended my lectures expecting a lot of questions from you people.
Yes, but that's why. Actually, this is also interaction time only, sir. The final part. That's why I'm trying to ask them to. If there are any questions.
You are also welcome to email me. I think, sir, you can share my email ID once more in the chat box. Yes, sir. Yes, or shall I put it? Okay,
sir.
Okay.
Sir, we have noted it, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Shall we close this session, sir, or still more participants? I want to hear from you.
Good session, sir. It was a good session.
Thank you very much. But what is good? You tell me.
You can know more about XRD, sir.
XRD is a very simple technique, sir.
Sir has discussed about even better techniques, SEM and TEM, EDAX, all those techniques. Sir, I have a question actually for in our organic materials, like natural materials, whether these techniques will be suitable, sir, or we have to use any other specialized techniques?
No. See, I think, like I was telling you, organic, in the first present, work that which was published in 2003. Basically, it was by some of my biological colleagues. Basically, they were an MTech biological sciences student. She has synthesized this particular iron oxide using that egg white. Okay. So that I had to evaporate it on a platinum grid. Okay, some particles will be sticking to the platinum grid. So I take this one to my TM, and then I got this. So even for an organic material, I don't know what is the temperature that it can stand without any transformation. If you tell me that, I will not go beyond the temperature, but I will try to evaporate it onto my grid. And I think there are some more latest techniques which I'm not very sure. These days I'm a bit away from my actual experimental techniques. 4 or 5 years finally, okay, so it should be possible. Basically, people are characterization even biological specimens using TM and SCM.
Okay.
We can discuss in detail if you can mail me.
Sure, sir. So if there are no questions, we shall thank our resource person, sir, Professor GVS Murthy garu. Thank you very much, sir, for your sharing wonderful experience on this microstructural characterization techniques of nanomaterials. I hope all the participants are getting some awareness with respect to all these techniques, and they can make use of it in their research works. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for extending your support and sharing your valuable knowledge.
It's a pleasure, and yes, I also would like to see more and more interaction with participants. Okay.
I think definitely they will email you, sir, as email is also provided. Thank you, sir.
Thank
you very much.
Shall we close?
We shall, sir. Sure.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.